Welcome to Career Tools. This week, planning for resume improvement.
Part 1.
The questions this cast answers are, what do I do to improve my resume? How can I improve my resume? And what opportunities can I take to improve my resume?
A longtime listener of our guidance once shared with us the comment that, I just do this stuff and people like me. It's like numbers for people. If you've ever struggled with relationship building, you're not alone. And we know that your struggles are not for lack of trying. If you knew how to fix them, you'd have done that already. And it's not uncommon for the more task-focused of us to struggle in this area. Join us at an Effective Manager and or Effective Communicator conference so we can share with you our formula for building better relationships. Register now at manager-tools.com/training.
Beginning a job search, whether you are beginning because you got fired or made redundant or something happened that, where the company and you split up, not of your own volition, or whether you are in a job search because you want to make a change and knowing that your resume doesn't really reflect your abilities is a really horrible feeling. It's a feeling of, it's like going out and driving somewhere and knowing you don't have quite enough gas to get there. It's a kind of anxious feeling and you're really hoping you're going to get there, but you might not. And that's kind of how I feel about bad resumes. Bad resumes come from a couple of reasons. One might be that you just didn't do a good job of creating a resume, but also the resume is based on all of the things that you've done in the job you're in. And so it may be that you didn't do the right things or you didn't record the right things, and that's why your resume is bad. So in this cast, we're going to talk about things that you can do now so that when you do look for a job, whether that's in 3 months or 6 months or a year, your resume reflects your actual skills and your actual achievements and what you can do. And so you feel good about your resume, which helps you go into interviews feeling good. And that means you are more likely to get the job that you want. So Kate, what are we going to cover?
We're going to cover 6 things. What is your next move? What do you need? Look for opportunities. Measure your growth. Upgrade your resume. And don't lose sight of the present.
So before we start, let's say one thing really clearly. The single best resume improvement is results in your present role. In other words, if you do nothing else, but you get results in the role that you're in right now, that's the 99% of getting a good resume in 3 months or a year or however long it takes. The results you get now are the basis for a good resume. So no matter what we say in the next however long it takes us to explain this, don't forget that day to day, you need to get results in the role that you're in now. If you forget that and you do a bunch of stuff that we recommend, and then you can't put stuff on your resume because you didn't get any results, none of the other things that we're going to recommend will do you any good. So whatever we say, keep in mind you must get results in your current role.
We have to pay attention to the work that we're currently doing. So our first topic is, what is your next move? And we've talked many times, we've told everyone over and over again that you are in control of your own career. You have teammates, you have your manager, the executives at your office, HR, recruiters, and anyone else you know. They are not acting with your best interests at heart, but of course their own. And it's not in a bad way. Sometimes those interests will align and what they want will be what you want to. Sometimes they'll see an opportunity that you won't. Sometimes what they want won't be in your interest and you'll do it anyway because it will contribute positively to that relationship. At the end of the day, though, it's yourself that really needs to be paying attention and planning for your future. You're the person who's in control of your career. And it's really important to keep that in mind. We recorded a cast previously about bad career advice. It's called Bad Career Advice, Follow Your Passion. And we listed 4 ways to think about what you want to do next. And none of those was to follow your passion. Kind of misleading, but we wanted to help people understand what's important about how to think about your next step. And so first, we suggested to find a way to love what it is that you're doing. Let's say you're an accountant and maybe you've gotten a little bored of it. It's a little stagnant. Would it be exciting to be an accountant at Google or at the Jefferson Museum or the United Nations? Is there another place where the role that you're filling would be more fulfilling to you because of where your interests might meet your skills? So that's one thing, is to ask yourself, can I find a way to do this job in a way that helps me to love it more? So we talked about that. We also talked about finding what makes you happy. And I think a lot of us feel this way. Sometimes it's easy to feel like having more money would make us feel happy, but it's often something else that really makes a job worthwhile, right? Something like working in an office where you always have somebody to chat and gossip to, or being at home in time every night to cook dinner for your family or with your family, or just, if you love to cook. I got to cook something last night. It was really good. Maybe it's meeting new people every day. Maybe you want to interact more with other people around you. Which of the things that you do now in your current role are things that you want to keep doing in the future? Is it flexibility, or, I used to go to the gym every day at the end of my workday, and I loved doing that at the end of the day every day. So that's the second thing, is to find out what makes you happy. We talked also, I think, about pursuing your interests, and keeping in mind that it doesn't have to be your primary paid employment. If perhaps you really love to dance, or you are very invested in that, can you find a way to pursue your interest outside of work, right? Do it at home, find a job that allows you to have the time for it, something like that. Not having dance as your primary income source. You could still indulge your, hobby, or I guess dance isn't really a hobby, is it? I don't know. I don't know if I would call it a hobby as much as, a passion and interest that we pursue outside of work, so that our job gives us the ability to do that.
I have a friend who is obsessed with travel. She goes to all these places that nobody else would go to. No, people do go to the places. She's one of those people that's been to base camp at Everest because that's where she wanted to go. She goes to all sorts of places, and she has worked the same job as a civil servant for, oh God, how old is she? 25 years maybe. And because she's a civil servant in the UK, she gets like 40 days a year as a vacation.
Yeah.
And she makes enough money to go on all those trips. And I don't know that she necessarily loves her job, but she loves what it gives her, which is the ability to do what she loves, which is to travel. And so that might be your trade-off in the future, that you find something that gives you enough money and enough flexibility to do the thing that you love, but isn't, there's some people who work to live and some people who live to work. And she's a work to live person, and you might be too. So that if that's how you are, if there's something that's way more important to you than work, then you find a way to make work and the income you get from it support whatever it is that you love to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to give up your job to become a best-selling author, right? You could write your book on your breaks or on your weekends. There's very few best-selling authors who make enough money to live off of. So we want to pursue our interests, but they don't have to be our primary source of income. And it's important to keep in mind. We also talked in that cast, I think, about finding something that you like to do. Programming isn't really fun if you don't like to be at your desk all day looking at a computer. That's not probably a great fit. Many people think management is the obvious next step. But if you don't enjoy dealing with people, it's probably not the best move, because there's people there. There's people in a lot of offices, and managing them is something that requires sometimes just enjoying humans.
And caring about them, right? People always say, oh, I love to see people develop. And I'm like, okay, I love to see work done. So I would be a rubbish manager because I don't really care if people are developing, but I do care if the work's done. So, you have to admit to yourself that, sometimes things that people assume are desirable or assume are the next step just won't make them happy, or they won't be good at it. Even things like travel. A lot of people say, oh, I'd love to have a job where I travel, until you get on a plane every Monday morning for 3 weeks out of the month and you go somewhere else and you're never at home to see your friends. And even if you are home, if you're home and you've been traveling, people don't make plans. People make plans without you because they assume that you won't be there. And traveling has a lot of benefits, but the people who travel every week will tell you what the downsides are. So it's important to find something you want to do, that you like to do, and to look at it realistically around whether or not it actually will be the fun that you think it is.
Absolutely. You're right about the travel thing. It's one of those things where people say all the time, I'd love to travel for work. And it really depends. Jobs are not always as balanced as they should be. And, sometimes people would like more travel, but you have to keep in mind when they say more travel, they might mean much more than you would enjoy.
Yes, exactly. And you fly to somewhere, you go from the airport to the hotel, you stay in the hotel for 3 days, and then you leave and you go straight back to the airport. A lot of travel jobs, you don't see the place that you're going to. You're just constantly in hotels. And if you're in the chain hotel, if you always go to a Marriott, they all look the same. And you could be anywhere.
So true.
So it's important to, look at things realistically and decide what you want to do. One way to do this is to look at a job board. You can just browse the jobs that are on a job board in areas that you think you might be interested in. Look at the job descriptions and the parts of jobs that might be interesting to you, and look for the things that you identified in those 4 questions. Look, if you decided that flexibility is something that's really important to you, look for the jobs that have that flexibility. If you decided that you want to travel or you want to, program Java, look for those things. The other thing about looking at a job board is, one, you can look at the job description, so you can decide, okay, these 5 jobs tend to be the things that I'm interested in. And the other thing you can look at is you can find out how much they pay and how much in demand they are. So I can guarantee you, if you look at a job board, 50% of the jobs are project managers and IT project managers, because it just seems like those people are 50% of the workforce right now.
Yeah.
And because there's a higher demand for them, the wages are higher. But if you want to do something, like teaching is a passion job because it rarely pays well. So the job boards give you a really good idea of what jobs should I be looking at, what jobs am I going to be interested in, do they pay enough, do they have the flexibility, whatever that I'm looking for. So having that in your head gives you a goal for the rest of the things that we're going to talk about now.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk now about, what do you need? So once you've decided what you want your future to be, then you can start planning to get there. We're going to look at the job description for the job that you want and ask, what can you demonstrate you do have, what skills, and what skills do you need? For example, right now, our friends at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory are looking for an IT desk side service manager. And that's a lot of words. The job description says that 5 years of supervisory experience is needed. So they've been really clear. They say 5 years in supervisory roles. Supervisory experience must include hiring, training, performance management, and coaching staff. And if you've had a role in first level support, you would have the technical knowledge, right, to fix user problems with hardware and software. And you probably don't have experience with hiring and training. So if you wanted this job, your job now, right, your goal would be to get that experience, that additional hiring, supervisory kind of experience, in order to get yourself prepared to be the right fit for that particular role.
Here's another example. So again, the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. I hope that they abbreviate that somehow.
Yes.
If you work there.
They do. It's APL, Johns Hopkins APL.
Oh, okay. I can say APL. So they are also advertising for a social media lead. And one of the requirements is knowledgeable about SEO, keyword research, and Google Analytics. So let's imagine that last minute Larry is in the marketing department of another company and he wants to do this social media lead job. And he vaguely knows what SEO is and he vaguely knows what keyword research is, but he has no in-depth knowledge and he's certainly never used those skills. And he sees this job advertised in an institution that he really admires and he fudges his resume enough to get an interview. And now he's got between now, whenever this is, and his interview to learn enough to have a convincing conversation about it and to try and get that job that he wants. Whereas if we rewind time a little and we look at someone who's been in a marketing role for a year, and he's got the hang of the day-to-day stuff. He knows what, everybody's going to give him. He knows what kind of work to do. He might be someone who's quite new to marketing, but after a year, he's kind of got the hang of how his department works. And he's ready to look to the future, and he sees this job of social media lead, and he thinks, in another year, that's the kind of job I'd want. So let's see, what do I have and what do I need? One of the things he needs is SEO and keyword research.
Yeah.
And so now he thinks, okay, every time there's an opportunity to do something or learn something about SEO and keyword research, I am going to take that because I want that to be on my resume. And so in another year, when he is ready to look for that role or apply for roles that are similar, he has the experience that he needs, right? He has bolstered his resume in the areas that were required in order for him to be a good candidate for that role.
Yeah, he's prepared.
Yeah, and that might sound incredibly obvious, but no one does this. No one, in my experience, does this. No one ever says, in a year I want to be the accounts manager, and you think, okay, so what are you doing about that? Well, nothing. Okay, okay, what does an accounts manager do? What are the top 10 skills? Which of those do you already have? And as Mark often says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So even if you have a little bit of this, you're doing better than 98% of everybody else.
Yeah. It's not, what we're describing isn't, counterintuitive at all. It's pretty obvious. And it's easy to get caught up in day-to-day stuff and forget that with some deliberation, we can plan for the next step.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of Getting Things Done, the David Allen book, where he has different levels. So there's runway, which is kind of your day-to-day, and then he goes up in 1,000 feet, so 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. I think he goes to 50, where each time you go up, you imagine if you're in an aeroplane that you're at 10,000 feet, you can see a little bit further. And every time you go up, you can see further. And everybody kind of needs to be working at those, because you can work at the runway level, you can work on the day-to-day and end up somewhere you don't want to go because you never looked up and looked, okay, where am I going? Because, I put one foot in front of the other every day for a year, and now where am I? And often it's not where we want to be. So the art of balancing your future and your present is to be able to sort of go through those levels up and down all of the time.
Good. So the next thing that we're going to do is look for opportunities. So we're going to find the opportunities to learn the skills and gather that experience that we need. So we're going to look for these opportunities, particularly opportunities that can be measured. Quantified accomplishments are exponentially more powerful on your resume than non-quantified ones. This means volunteering for projects and looking for things that no one is doing.
And we've said this before, but we'll say again, just so everyone hears it. We are not telling you to volunteer for more work and work yourself into illness or excessive stress. We're not telling you to give everything to your employer and have nothing for yourself. There's a balance. But most people can do far more than they are doing if A, they become more efficient, and B, push themselves out of their comfort zone. So we're going to tell you to look for opportunities to do more work, which some people take to mean that we side ourselves with the organization and we want everybody to wear themselves out for the organization. That's not what we're saying. But there's often opportunities to do extra work or to volunteer for something that maybe you wouldn't normally do that will give you experience that you can use in the future. Remember, you're not doing this actually in the organization's interest. You're doing it in your own interest because you want your resume to show that you can do all the things that the job you want asks of you. So this extra work is in your own interest. So let's say Peter, who we were talking about earlier, who's working in the marketing department, maybe he would be able to join the team who's working on a website refresh or a redesign, and that would allow him to talk to people about SEO and keywords. If there's somebody more senior in his team who is doing the website redesign, they're probably thinking about those things, and it gives them an opportunity to ask questions and to see what's done and how they do the research and how do they decide which words to put on the website and so on. Or he might be working in internal communications, which means you don't have a lot of opportunities to test his web knowledge, but that doesn't mean that he can't practice researching keywords and writing marketing copy that would have good SEO if it were to go outside, right? He can use his current project, his current piece of writing that will only be used inside the company, but he can still practice the skill of keywords and SEO while he's doing this piece of work.
There's another kind of example here that if you need training experience and you work in a big corporation, there's a change project going on somewhere that you can become an expert in.
Always.
Always. You could really shine here too. You could become a super user of whatever software you use and teach it to the people around you. You could teach the interns or write a booklet for customers that helps them help themselves and also helps you help them, because that's a big push, right? To make sure our customers are happy. There's always someone we can teach. There's always an opportunity because there's always someone who has less knowledge and experience with the tool or than us. You may have to find a new job as a stepping stone to the place or the job or the role that you want to get to. And there are a lot of choices out there. Oh my gosh, there's so many jobs out there. There's all kinds of jobs. I only have learned in the last 2 years that there are people who their job is pachyderm dermatology because elephants have so much skin to get their own dermatologist.
Well, who knew? I did not know that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of jobs. Yeah, you could go to so many different places, right? And you can get growth if you wanted that, if that was your goal. You could get that by climbing the ladder in a big organization. And that's a lot of what we think of at first. There's also opportunities in smaller companies. Often one person in a smaller company has a lot of responsibility because there's just less people to do the work. And so your knowledge base becomes very wide because you learn more skills. You could take a job for less pay that teaches you more, or decide that flexibility is really important right now and choose a job just for that reason. Remember that professions stretch across industries. For example, you could be a project manager, and that role, that title, could be useful in tech or education. It could be healthcare, film, retail, manufacturing, all kinds of stuff.
All the industries you can think of. I have a friend who's a plumber, and he does large-scale building plumbing mostly.
Okay.
So hospitals and schools and those kind of things. But he decided to be his union rep. Not because he, I think, particularly wanted to be the union rep, but because he knew that he couldn't be a manager yet because of the way his organization was. But as the union rep, he gets a bunch of experience talking to people, negotiating, trying to find good solutions for things, all things that he knows he'll need as a manager. And this was an opportunity that he could do right now to learn those skills. If you look at your job, if you look at where you are with that questioning mindset of, if I could learn this, how could I learn it? Then there's often way more opportunities than you think there are around.
Another opportunity here, another idea that you might think about, consider, is getting to know all the companies that are within a reasonable commute distance from where you live and where your home is. You could look at local newspapers and chambers of commerce. Those are often good resources and ways to find that out. You could also look on job boards, which we've talked about before, but this is kind of different. We're not looking at the specific jobs, but the companies who are advertising. So just getting kind of a company view. And honestly, don't forget to ask everyone you know where they work. Your network is a really great source of opportunity. I know you guys are familiar with our guidance around networks and how important that is. There's probably 10 opportunities to grow that you're missing right now just because you're not even looking. Results, retention, relationships, and communications. Words in the Manager Tools wheelhouse. With an audience that slants almost 70% technical, smart, and process-oriented, we teach managerial behaviors that are critical to achieving results, retaining the right people. It's all about relationships and communications. And we realize for a good majority of our listeners that may not come naturally. It's not hard, it just is, and the data prove it. Learn from our pre-podcast or our printed material with roadmap access and a public training conference or on-site client training. We have a solution for you, your team, or your organization.
That's all for this week. We'll carry on with this subject next week.